Good morning. My name is Norman Rothker, and I'm the minister of this congregation, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax, coming to you live from 5500 Inglis Street. Welcome to everyone to this time when all of the Abrahamic faith traditions are observing holy days. Today is Easter Sunday, celebrated by Christians around the world. For Jews, Friday past was the beginning of Passover, and for Muslims, we're in the middle of the holy month of Ramadan. Again, welcome to all. Pam Griffin-Hody is our service assistant this morning. Jessica Friesen is our music director. Marie-Claude Leroux is our director of religious exploration. And this morning, John Piccolo is our volunteer technical director. A great team, and I thank you all. If you're already receiving notifications from our church, but if you would like to receive updates on our activities and services, you can send an email to me, minister@uuch.ca, and we'll get you on our regular mailing list. That's minister@uuch.ca. Before the service begins, we have a few announcements. The order of service today was sent out over UU Info late on Saturday, so please see that for complete details. But I'll highlight a few things. There was a change just last night as the numbers of COVID cases continue to ramp up in Nova Scotia. Right now, we're discouraging people from attending church in person, and we won't be serving coffee after the service. We're hoping that we can get back again to in-person services shortly, so watch for updates. This coming week, there are two meetings that I'm aware of. The caring team meets on Tuesday, April 17th. I think they're going to be meeting at 6:30 via Zoom. And the governing board meeting, which is on Wednesday at 6:30. And that, I think, is going to be live at the church and on Zoom. See Troy Saunier, our board president, for more details if you'd like to attend. Over to Jessica for a note about the coffee house.
So May 7th, though, at 7 o'clock, the poster's up there. We're going to have our coffee house with poetry, music, and some art. Please contact me if you would like to take part in it. And we're going to have some community members and the after choir, of course. So May 7, 7 p.m.
Thank you. And one last announcement. Again, a reminder about our fundraising to build a new deck on the south side of the church. It's going to be absolutely amazing when you're back here. It'll be completed by September. When you're back here in September, we'll have this wonderful facility for celebrations and just for enjoying the beautiful backyard that we have here at this congregation. We've launched the final phase of our capital fundraising, but we haven't really it's very difficult in time of COVID to get the word out properly. So I know there are people out there who have heard the message, who thought, yeah, I'd like to make a contribution to that project, but may not have got around to it yet. So I encourage you to do so. You're welcome to write a check to the congregation or use an e-transfer, or if you happen to be in the church, you can fill out a pledge form here. And now, over to Jessica, who will present some music to help you forget about the announcements and relax as you prepare to enjoy the service today. But don't forget about the deck. Thank you.
Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. This is arranged by Teresa Wilhelmi, and it's a traditional spiritual. Thanks.
We are meeting in Shabukduk, Halifax, in Mi'kma'ki. If you are joining us from anywhere in Nova Scotia, or Prince Edward Island, or much of New Brunswick, parts of Maine, parts of Newfoundland, you are also in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, subject to peace and friendship treaties in the 18th century. Shabukduk means Great Harbor, and many Mi'kmaq lived in this area, taking advantage of good hunting of both land and marine animals and the many freshwater streams that led towards the harbor, one such very near this building. The area of downtown Halifax all the way to Point Pleasant Park, including where our church building is, was known to the Mi'kmaq as Amnukaki, which in English means spirit place, or the place of spirits. This is where Mi'kmaq believed that the Great Spirit fire sat, whose sparks gave birth to the Mi'kmaq people, which is told in their creation story. Every year, the Mi'kmaq from all over Mi'kma'ki would gather at Amtukaki for 7 days after the first full moon during the month that they called, and I'm going to really butcher this word, Tukuluaku, which means the frog croaking month, which is May, roughly. And the Mi'kmaq would come to this and celebrate the creation of their people. This month in Mi'kmaq is Bird Lays Eggs month, and this week my starlings came back to set up their nest in a crack under my roof that I always say I'm going to fix when they leave, and I never do, so they keep coming back. And in a few weeks it will be frog croaking month, and like clockwork, my windows will be open in the evenings, and I will hear their beautiful song, as we can still hear all over Mi'kma'ki and all over Shabukduk. I live 20 minutes from here at the very mouth of the Great Harbor, and I have seen moose, deer, ducks, and beaver in my backyard. I've picked wild cranberries not too far from my house, and only yesterday I spoke with a neighbor who was going lobster fishing. It is not difficult to imagine why the Mi'kmaq lived in Shabukduk. Let us humbly remember that we come together to worship in a place that was already sacred for centuries before most of our ancestors came to Mi'kma'ki. And when we speak of this land being subject to the peace and friendship treaties, that we try to live with the spirit of their meaning. And I would ask you that if you are joining us outside of Mi'kma'ki, please take a moment to acknowledge whose land you share.
This is a time in a service where I would be lighting the chalice, but to make sure things were working, I lit it ahead of time and forgot. And just got reminded that it's already lit. So, we still have words for our chalice lighting, and they were written by the Irish priest turned poet, John O'Donoghue. John O'Donoghue died unexpectedly at the age of 52 years in 2008. Since our theme this morning is awakening, it was interesting to note that John O'Donoghue wrote this, or the following, about his early college years. He wrote, "During these formative college years, I recall feeling my mind awakening, an exciting, frightening, and lonely experience." So these words by John O'Donoghue. We live between the act of awakening and the act of surrender. Each morning we awaken to the light and the invitation of a new day in the world of time. And each night we surrender to the dark, to be taken to play in the world of dreams where time is no more. At birth, we were awakened and emerged to become visible to the world. At death, we will surrender again to the dark and become invisible. Awakening and surrender, they frame each day and each life. Between them, the journey where anything can happen, the beauty and the frailty. And now, on Easter morning, Jessica will lead us in a hymn that I think can inspire us all on Easter.
O young and fearless prophet of ancient Galilee, your life is still a summons to serve humanity, to make our thoughts and actions less prone to please the crowd, to stand with humble courage for truth which hearts unbowed. Oh, help us. Oh, help us stand unswerving against the boar's bloody way, where hate and lust and false would hold back your holy sway. Forbid false love of country that turns us from your call, who lifts above the nation, the neighborhood of all. Create in us the splendor that daunts our hearts are kind, that knows not race nor station as boundaries of the mind, that learns to value beauty in hearts or mind or soul, and longs to see God's children as sacred, perfect whole. Stir up in us a protest against the needed wealth, for some go starving, hungry, who plead for work and health. Once more give us your challenge above our noisy day, and come to lead us forward along your holy way.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to share with you the story of a woman who's awakened to the miracles of the season. This is Rachenka's Eggs by Patricia Polacco. Babushka lived alone in a dacha, a little house in the country, but she was known far and wide for the fine eggs that she lovingly painted. Her eggs were so beautiful that she always won first prize at the Easter festival in Moskva. Each day, Babushka would take the shell of an egg from her basket and paint it in wonderful designs, using the shapes of stars and flowers, triangles and circles. Through the long, cold winter, Babushka painted. Then one day, after a snowstorm, Babushka went outside. She could still hear the faint sound of falling snow. It was a sound like soft rain. Herds of caribou came to feed at Babushka's because the grasses they usually ate were covered with snow. "A miracle," she whispered as she fed some. "These wild things have found their way to me." Just then, a flock of noisy geese honked loudly overhead. As they glided over the snow, one of them faltered and fell from the sky. Babushka went to where the goose lay crumpled in the snow. "A hunter did this," Babushka grumbled. She carefully picked up the goose and took it back to her little house. There, she fed the little goose from her own table and put the goose in her best basket lined with the warmest quilt from her own bed. I shall name you a good name, one that we both can like, eh, my little friend? She said as she patted the goose's head. How do you like Rechenka? Yes? Then Rechenka it shall be. With Babushka's care, Rechenka grew stronger as each day passed. And to repay her kindness, Rechenka laid an egg for breakfast every morning. As Rechenka got better, she waddled around the little house, exploring every nook, cupboard, and corner. One day, she jumped on top of Babushka's work table, overturning the jars of bright-colored paint that she used to color the eggs. Niet! Babushka screamed as she chased the goose with a broom. The frightened goose flapped her wings to get away and knocked over the basket of eggs that Babushka had so lovingly painted. The eggs crashed onto the floor and shattered into a million pieces. They were both very sad. There was no reason now for Babushka to go to the festival. The next morning, Babushka got up and in a basket found a beautiful egg right in the middle of the quilt. She picked out the most brilliantly colored egg that she had ever seen. She held the egg up to the morning light and marveled at its beauty. A miracle, Babushka whispered. A miracle. After that, every morning for 12 mornings there was another egg, each more intricate than the one laid the day before. Soon, Babushka had enough eggs to take to the festival. How wonderful, she thought. A miracle has replaced the eggs that were broken. Spring is here, my little friend, Babushka said to Rechenka the morning of the festival. Soon now you'll be flying off to the north with your flock. She bustled in the hearth fire and brewed some of her most favorite tea. The two shared a saucer of tea with kulik, a sweet Easter bread. She covered each piece with pashka, a spread of cheese, butter, and raisins. They savored each bit together. I shall sorely miss you, but you are a wild thing, and a miracle sent you to me. It would not be right to ask you to stay here with me forever. When Babushka left her little house, she took one last look at Rechenka sitting on the doorstep. She waved, then took determined steps for Moskva with a basket of her precious eggs. She crossed the valley and made her way to the festival through caribou mothers who were walking their newborn calves. A miracle, she thought. New little lives. A miracle. She crossed the bridge over the Moskva River, and soon she could see the onion domes of old Moskva. The festival was bright and exciting. There were processions, dancers, jugglers, and laughing children playing and running. Babushka showed her old friends the eggs. Her eggs are the most beautiful in the world, her friends thought. Look at them, the elders said. They almost glow, as if the paint is part of the shell itself. The judges, of course, picked Babushka's eggs as the most beautiful. Babushka was so happy, she beamed as she looked at the first prize, a beautiful warm quilt. As Babushka made her way homeward, a honking flock of geese flew overhead. Babushka gave them a long, lingering look. She wondered if Rechenka was one of them. When Babushka arrived at home, she noticed that Rechenka was gone. Alone, she put the new quilt on her little bed. She brewed a cup of tea, ate the last of the kulik and the pashka, got into bed and drifted off to sleep. She hadn't noticed Rechenka's basket. But that night, Babushka was awakened from a sound in her sleep by an ever so small sound. It was coming from Rechenka's basket. She hobbled closer and saw a glorious egg. But this one was different from all the others. It quivered and moved. It made tiny muffled sounds. The egg jumped, bumped, rolled, and pitched in the basket. Then there was a crack, and Babushka could see the very special gift that Rechenka had left for her. All a miracle, Babushka said. and this little goose remained with Babushka always. And so, may you be awakened to the miracles of this season, this spring. Norm brought a beautiful goose egg with the intricate pisanki art done in Ukraine on eggs. It's in front of the chalice. I could take it and try to show you, but I'm very clumsy. And they're very delicate, and I'm quite worried about it. So those here might, at the end of the service, come take a look. It's quite beautiful. In the meantime, normally, when we sing the children out, we've been singing a certain song for many years. Today, we're introducing a new song. It's called It Takes a Whole Village. There aren't children here today to sing out, but Jessica will play so that we can all start getting a feel for it, getting the sound, and practicing to be ready to sing when we gather back in person to sing the children out. Thank you, Jessica.
It takes a whole village to raise our children. It takes a whole village to raise one child. We all, everyone, must share the burden. We all, everyone, will share the joy. Okay, it takes a whole village to raise our children. I want you to sing that with me. It takes a whole village to raise our children. It takes a whole village to raise one child. It takes a whole village to raise one child. We all have everyone must share the burden. We all, everyone, must share the burden. We all, everyone will share the joy. We all, everyone, will share the joy.
Thank you. And now I invite Pam to come up and assist as we take this special time to reflect on our joys and sorrows. It's a sacred time in our service. It's a time that we set apart to honor the many joys and the many sorrows that you, the members and friends of the congregation, are living, and to acknowledge the mutual support of our community. This morning, I invite Pam to light one candle for all those who are here with us or in our thoughts, who may be struggling mentally, physically, financially, or emotionally. And we also light one candle for all the joys that are here with us, the big joys that come along only and frequently, and the little joys that we're blessed with every day if we're able to see them. Each week, we invite anyone who would like to light a candle to email me with the details. And later, when we stop live streaming on YouTube and before the coffee hour begins, we'll invite anyone else to share a joy or a sorrow and have a candle lit if they would like to do so. This morning, we light a candle for Barb Dacey, who's in the cardiology ward at the infirmary, room 10 on the 6th floor. Barb's still undergoing tests. She's resting comfortably and praising the staff for their care of her. I visited her yesterday, and other members of the congregation have been visiting before me. Barb has a phone in her room, and she would welcome calls. Now, would anyone in the sanctuary like to light a candle?
So I want to say thank you to the congregation. Ndawula Simon was the young man from Uganda who we were trying to raise money for his surgery. And we raised more money, so he has money to take to have aftercare, which is not very popular. And so he thanks all of us so much. And he said words can't describe how thankful he is. And to you who donated, thank you so much, because it did make a difference. And I will see him in Uganda when I travel there. So I'll take a picture and I'll show it in the service, which will be kind of nice. So thank you.
It's amazing. The story this morning was about miracles, and miracles that we take for granted, that we had someone drop in on our service all the way from Uganda based on their just looking at our congregation, deciding they would like to sit in. And now Jessica's going to be flying there, which is amazing. Barb Dacey's in the hospital, and the miracle there is that we have a caring committee. One of the most active members of our caring committee is Shripad Penzi, Shripad is in Australia at the moment, but he's having long conversations with Barbara and with other members of the congregation, and he'll be flying back here, another miracle, in the first week in May. May the joys and the sorrows, both those acknowledged here this morning and those held in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, weave us together in the interdependent fabric that is our community. And now Jessica will lead us in the reflective hymn.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from above over and around us lies, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. Thank you.
Our meditation this morning is by Kathleen Rowlands. Easter is breaking. Somewhere across the world, Easter is breaking. Not the Easter we may think of with arms upraised and "He is risen" echoing from canyons, but a much quieter, less dramatic Easter. Somewhere in the world, perhaps not this day, but someday soon, a woman and man rise from their beds, shaking the sleep from their eyes, and find their children already awake and preparing for their morning prayers. There has been no gunfire, no drug wars, no yelling or shouting or screaming, only the quiet of the night and the peace of silence around them. And somewhere in the world, perhaps not this morning, but soon, very soon, a soldier is packing his duffel bag, has emptied out all his bullets, is changing into civilian clothes, and is coming home. For peace has long been established, and there is no need for his presence. And somewhere in the world, Easter dawn breaks over the earth, not only on this day, but every day. And the familiar pulse in our veins throbs of peace, peace, peace.
Thank you, Pam. The pieces of the service this morning kind of fit together in a special way. The story Rachenka's egg reminds me of my grandmother. My grandmother and grandfather emigrated from the Ukraine, 1905, and my grandmother used to do those eggs. I wish I had one of her eggs, but I don't. The one we have today is the one I got from another source. But I can still see her and hear her and know that she fled from Ukraine in difficult time as well. And the reading that we just heard, the lines about someday a soldier will pack his bag, speaks to what's happening in Ukraine today. So thank you, Pam. That reading speaks of Easter in a metaphorical sense, resurrection as a sense of rebirth, an awakening to a new world. So my intention this morning is to speak in metaphor about Easter. I had planned to talk through some stories of awakening relayed from the lives of members of the congregation. And I'm grateful to those who responded to my call for stories, both of you. I was hoping for a little more to work with, so I'm going to add a couple of awakening stories of my own, and we'll take it from there. I hope as you listen, you'll think about moments of your own awakening. And if you feel so moved, I hope you'll share them with me via email for a later reflection. In a major way, life becomes meaningful in the moments of our awakening, times when we see something with a new appreciation, times when we sense a new understanding of our place in the universe, moments when the fog that surrounds us seems to lift, the light shines through, and our life changes forever. The admonition to stay woke in relation to issues of racial oppression is a powerful current example of that metaphor. I encourage you to reflect on your own life and at the times when your life took on new meaning, moments to be remembered, moments to be built on, times to help chart a path of spiritual growth. Sometimes slow to come to consciousness, waking up gradually, sometimes a sudden insight. Here's my first example from a congregant. She wrote, I remember feeling a sense of awakening when pulling out of a deep and long-lasting depression that had left me feeling so ground down, so exhausted for months. I was a young adult then, and for a long time I carried around a terrible sense that everything was just a gray mist and would remain a gray mist forever. I felt as if I would always be tired, as if there would be nothing but tiredness in the future for me. But I began to get better. Things popped back into color again. It was like a movie trick, a grayscale changing to color. It's not that everything became wonderful all at once. That didn't happen. But colors returned, and life returned, and things unfurled a little bit. There's a Buddhist saying, a lotus grows in the mud. And that was true for me. Nothing is permanent. Even when things seem grim, some kind of awakening can still come. Thank you for sharing that reflection. Issues of depression affect so many, and just hearing of the potential for an awakening, however gradual, is hopefully inspiring. Sometimes we need an outside observer to help us wake up to reality. In my own case, I've told my story of my struggles to understand myself and my limitations. In my case, it took the intervention of a psychologist to open my eyes to the fact that I'd been raised in an alcoholic family. My life changed dramatically and for the better when I woke up rather suddenly to that reality. Moments of awakening can come after long struggles, or they can come as flashes of insight. They can be heavy to bear, or they can be sudden, humorous, and delightful. Like this story. The names here have been changed to protect the innocent, but it sounds best with a slight Newfoundland accent, and someone may recognize the people involved. This morning, this person wrote, "This morning when George opened the blinds in the living room, he was faced with a family of deer, not 3 feet from our window. They were happily grazing on a smorgasbord of new shoots and bulbs growing in front of our house. Normally, I'd be annoyed that the deer once again were aborting my lovely tulips before they had a chance to blossom and delight me with their beauty. But then I thought, they have every right to whatever is growing there. They deserve those tulips as much as I do. Bon appetit, I thought. Although, in an effort to salvage a few of those beauties, George promised to water the area with some male urine. Don't ask, she said. Well, on a less humorous note, there's a kind of awakening that comes from the gathering of many threads from history and from the work of others who have struggled before us. You can't really understand where you are without understanding how you got there. This is what frustrates me in discussions I see online about what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. Often those people are expressing an opinion on the basis of their experience of UUism in a particular congregation at a particular time, without any reference to the historical context and the evolution of our faith tradition. So I want to explore that on this Easter morning just a bit. I'll reflect on my own awakening to the meaning of Easter in a Unitarian Universalist context. To do so, I'm going to begin by retelling a story that I've shared with you in the past, but it's a formative story for me. I was in my first year in seminary at the Liberal Methodist Seminary at Emory University, called the Candler School of Theology. And we had an amazing teacher, Dr. Luke Timothy Johnson, an eminent Roman Catholic theologian, a man who was a Benedictine monk for 17 years, a world-renowned Christian thinker and writer. He stopped in the middle of a lecture because he said, "You're not getting my message. You're not listening to me." He stopped to tell a classroom full of first-year theology students, many of them from Methodist backgrounds in the deep south of the U.S. He stopped to tell that class of theology students that he, Luke Timothy Johnson, did not believe in the bodily resurrection of Jesus. You could hear a pin drop between the books slamming closed and people sitting upright and leaning forward. I got the attention of the class, and that was a moment of awakening for me. Christian theology became much more accessible, a much more interesting subject. Dr. Johnson went on to say that we can never know exactly what happened at the time of Jesus' crucifixion, but that event became a watershed in human history. The people closest to Jesus were so affected by his life and his death that they would risk everything to spread his message. Well, Unitarians and Universalists were part of the Christian church, although admittedly seen as heretical by many, well into the 1800s. Our faith tradition's separation from mainstream Christianity, at least in North America, is often linked to 3 events. William Ellery Channing's Baltimore sermon of 1819, Ralph Waldo Emerson's Harvard Divinity Address of 1838, and Theodore Parker's South Boston sermon of 1841. And remember, this church was founded in 1837, right at the time that all of these things were developing. These 3 texts, along with the appropriate introductions, are available in a book, which I happen to bring with me this morning, Channing, Emerson, and Parker, 3 Prophets of Religious Liberalism. I want to quote now from the last of those 3 sermons by Theodore Parker in 1841, titled The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity. Looking at the word of Jesus at real Christianity, the pure religion he taught, nothing appears more fixed and certain. Its influence widens as light extends. It deepens as the nations grow more wise. But looking at the history of what men call Christianity, nothing seems more uncertain and more perishable. Parker continues, it's hard to see why the great truths of Christianity rest on the personal authority of Jesus, more than the axioms of geometry rest on the personal authority of Euclid or Archimedes. The authority of Jesus, as of all teachers, one would naturally think, must rest on the truth of their words, not their truth on their authority. The Universalist Church of Halifax, founded in 1837, carried the vision of Jesus and hence Easter into our wonderful city of Halifax. This quote is from the Universalist Monitor, the newsletter of the Universalist Church of the Redeemer, Volume 1, Number 6, July 1902. And yes, we were founded as the Church of the Redeemer. This from the newsletter. The Church of the Redeemer is a distinctively liberal church. It stands for theological honesty. It denies salvation by system. It affirms salvation by life. It denies Christian polytheism, a reference here to the Trinity. It affirms one God of all in all. It is agnostic as to heaven and hell as places, but it recognizes heaven and hell as spiritual conditions. It denies Jesus Christ as God and the vicarious atonement. It affirms the divine humanity of Jesus, and that by living as he lived, we can gain heaven within. It teaches that the only way to escape from hell is to live out of it. It teaches that the only way to gain heaven is to live into it. It emphatically denies the existence of a personal devil. It regards the Bible as sacred literature, but not as verbally inspired. And it extends hospitality to truths from every source. It teaches God's scheme of salvation is universal and includes every human soul. It teaches the grandeur and the nobility of human life, and that something more, that human life is something more than a probationary period to be lived in reference to a future heaven or hell. But that we are all to participate in the evolution of humanity towards righteousness and truth. As your minister, I'm proud to be a member of this church and minister for a church with this heritage, a church that continues to evolve, a church that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more. I'm going to take a break now before my closing words, but Jessica has some music for us now. Maybe a welcome break from a heavy discussion before I return for my concluding reading.
So this is my own arrangement of You Are My Sunshine. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sun. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. Oh, away.
Thank you for that. Minister's Reflection Part 2, Sustaining Easter. I want to conclude my reflection this morning, and I found words that are more eloquent than anything I could say myself. Words by Reverend Victoria Weinstein. A piece titled, Being the Resurrection. The stone has got to be rolled back from the tomb again and again every year. So roll up your sleeves. He is not coming back, you know. He's not coming back unless it is we who rise for him. We who lay healing hands on the reviled and rejected, like he did, on his behalf. We who rage for righteousness in his insistent voice. We who love the sinner, even knowing that the sinner is no further off than our own heartbeat. He will not be back to join us at the table to share God's extravagant banquet, God's love feast, but all are invited, come as you are. And so it is you who must feast for him. Must say grace and break the bread, pass it to the left, and dish up the broiled fish or pour the wine and pass it to the right. And treat each one so tenderly as though just this morning he or she made the personal effort to make it back from heaven or from hell, but certainly from death, to be by our side. Because if by some miracle, and why not a miracle, he did come back, wouldn't you want to see us like this? Wouldn't it be a miracle to live for just one day, so that if he did come by some amazing feat, come riding into town, he could take a look around and say, this is what I meant. And we could say, it took us a long time, but we finally figured it out. So, my friends, let us live to make it so. You are the resurrection and the life. May you remember that. May it be so. And amen. Jessica will now lead us in the closing hymn, number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again.
If you're able and comfortable, you can stand and sing the final song with me. Lo, the earth awakes again, alleluia, from the winter bonds and pain, alleluia. Bring we leaf and flower spray, alleluia, to adorn this happy day, alleluia. Once again the word comes true, alleluia. All the earth shall be made new, alleluia. and morning into spring. Alleluia. And for dirges anthems raise. Alleluia. Our spirits soar and sing. Alleluia. How our hearts sleep with the spring. Alleluia.
And now a word for our sponsors. That would be you. Now, we read this message every week, and I'm going to try to put a spin on it because I really want the week I have to read it to be the week that people listen to it. When I was 3 years old, I appeared in a print ad in the Chronicle Herald, and it ran for weeks, and it was for Black Diamond cheese spread, a generic Cheese Whiz. And I'm holding a big jar of Black Diamond cheese spread, and I'm wearing a little, cute little 1965 frilly dress, and I had hair to my shoulders, and this big smile, and it just says, "More cheese, please." And I think the sponsor was Dominion Store. Anyway, for a while, like actually all through the 60s, and I think I'm personally responsible, Black Diamond cheese spread outsold Cheese Whiz in Halifax. So, picture, instead of this old, stout, middle-aged woman standing in front of you, a little girl in a pink dress with puff sleeves holding the off-tree basket. And now I'll read my boring script. Here is your reminder that the ongoing functions of our congregation require your financial support. The best way to do that is through support for our annual pledge drive, and this year the congregation has been very generous. If, however, you were not able to participate in that way, or if you would like to support other activities that are funded outside our pledge drive, here's your chance. 2 programs that need funding are the Saturday Brunch and the Minister's Discretionary Fund. The Minister's Discretionary Fund is used to help members, friends, and neighbors of our congregation when a little support can go a long way. If you would like to support our work, we will take up a collection in the sanctuary, and the slide will tell you how to help from home. More money, please.
These closing words, as we extinguish the chalice here in the sanctuary, by Alex Holt. For all those who celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, may this day be another affirmation of divine love and promise. For all those who see the eternal story of new spring and life beginning anew, may you breathe deeply of a season of promise and hope. For all who are experiencing despair and hopelessness this Easter, may you find in the darkness of depression a doorway to light and warmth that offers you freedom. And for all of us together, we can do what no one isolated person can do. Rolling the heavy stone aside reminds us we are far more powerful together than we ever could be on our own. Our offering is our strong hands and our hearts to help our prayers be made real. Let us begin again in love. Amen. Thank you. Thank you all who attended the service today. We'll say goodbye now to those who joined us by YouTube as we end our live streaming. For those who joined by Zoom, in a few minutes, we'll be returning if you'd like to share a joy or a sorrow, and we'll follow that by our coffee hour. Thank you again. The streaming service will now end.